In this video, I'll be talking about the speech time and the order for a debate. So basically the format of a debate. So in a debate round, we always start with the first affirmative constructive speech, which is also known as the 1AC. The 1AC is 8 minutes. In the 1AC, the affirmative team is going to present their plan and also present advantages that say why their plan is good. And the 1AC is the source of debate for the entire round. So after the 1AC is finished reading, after the 1A is finished reading comes cross-examination. Cross-examination lasts for 3 minutes. So the second negative speaker comes up and cross-exes the first affirmative speaker who just spoke. And he or she will ask him questions about what he or she has just read. So after cross-examination, after the 3-minute cross-ex, is the first negative constructive speech, also known as the 1NC. And the 1NC is also 8 minutes. In the 1NC, the speaker can read a bunch of things. They can read topicality, they can read inherency arguments, solvency arguments, disadvantages, counterplans, or anything basically. So the 1NC has a lot of freedom to combat what the first affirmative speaker has said. And he or she can take 8 minutes to do this. And after the first negative constructive speech is another cross-examination. This cross-examination is also 3 minutes. So the 1AC, which was the first affirmative speaker, will come up and ask the first negative speaker questions about what he or she has said. So after that is the second affirmative constructive, also known as the 2AC. The 2AC is also 8 minutes. And in the 2AC, the speaker will back up everything in the 1AC and answer arguments and concepts that the first negative speaker brought up. So the 2AC is basically reinforcing the affirmative team's plan. And this is also 8 minutes. And after this comes another cross-ex, and this cross-ex is also 3 minutes. So the first negative speaker will come up and cross-ex the second affirmative speaker, and this is basically the same process as the other cross-examinations. And after this is the second negative constructive, and the second negative constructive is pretty self-explanatory, the 2NC. This is also 8 minutes. We're basically answering all of the arguments brought up in the 2AC and the 1AC. You can bring up some new arguments in the 2NC, but it should be limited. You shouldn't bring up too many new advantages or too many new arguments that the affirmative team has to answer. And after this is another cross-examination, which is also 3 minutes. And after this is the first negative rebuttal, which is also known as the 1NR, which is 5 minutes. And this gives the negative team an advantage because the negative team has back-to-back speeches. So the affirmative team in their next speech will only have 5 minutes to answer 13 minutes of stuff said by the negative team. And in the 1NR, the negative speaker will essentially argue the arguments. No new arguments should be brought up in the rebuttals. So you're basically backing up the arguments that have already been made. And after the 1NR is the 1AR. The 1AR is possibly the most challenging speech because you only have 5 minutes to answer 13 minutes of what the negative team has said. So most of the time you have to cram a lot of stuff into these 5 minutes. And again, you can't bring up new arguments. You just have to answer the arguments that have already been said. And after the 1AR comes the 2NR. The 2NR is the last speech that the negative team will give, and it stands for the second negative rebuttal. And this is also 5 minutes. The second negative rebuttal is essentially summarizing the debate from the negative point of view and saying why the negative team wins. And after the second negative rebuttal is the second affirmative rebuttal. And this is where the affirmative team has the advantage. The affirmative team has the last speech, so this will stick with the judge. So the last speech the affirmative gives should summarize the debate in the affirmative team's point of view and say why the affirmative team should win and why the negative team should lose. And throughout all of these times and all of the order and all of the times that I've talked about, each team also has 5 minutes of prep time, which they can use whenever they want to prep for a speech. So in conclusion, let me go over everything again. First off, we have the 1AC, which lasts 8 minutes. Then we have cross-ex for 3 minutes. Then we have the 1NC, 8 minutes, and then another cross-ex for 3 minutes. Then we have the 2AC, which is 8 minutes, and then another cross-ex for 3 minutes. And then the 2NC, which is 8 minutes, and then another cross-ex for 3 minutes. And after that, we have the 1NR, the first negative rebuttal, which is 5 minutes. The 1AR, the first affirmative rebuttal, which is also 5 minutes. The 2NR, the second negative rebuttal, which is also 5 minutes. And finally, the second affirmative rebuttal, which is also 5 minutes. So I hope I cleared some confusion up, and thank you for watching.